Good morning. This is Father Stephen Kelly from St. John's Church in Detroit. And this Sunday morning, we are going to look at the lesson that's appointed for morning prayer in our daily office lectionary. Now, one of the things you might notice as you've been following along morning and evening prayer and the lessons that are assigned for it is that even though we follow generally a sequential way through various Old Testament books or epistles or gospels in the daily lectionary, on Sunday morning, there are lessons assigned that don't follow that sequence. Part of that reason is because sometimes the lessons are related to the main lessons that are assigned for the Holy Communion service on that day. The Old Testament lesson usually has an allusion to the gospel lesson. So if you wanted to add a third lesson to the morning one at communion time, you could borrow the morning prayer lesson. Or if you're doing morning prayer and communion, which is the way the prayer book was actually written anyway, you would be able to do that. You would just have morning prayer and the other lesson, and then a break, and then the Holy Communion service. The lessons would be related. The gospel lesson that's assigned for the Holy Communion service today is from the 16th chapter of St. John's Gospel, and it talks about prayer. And in particular, Jesus in that lesson starts out, let me turn the right page, starts out the lesson by saying this: "Verily, verily, I say unto you, whatsoever you shall ask the Father in my name, he will give it you." And then goes on to talk a little bit about prayer. And so it is that the lesson that's actually appointed for evening prayer picks up on the same theme. As a matter of fact, it starts out with the disciples asking Jesus. It's from St. Luke's Gospel, the 11th chapter, beginning at the first verse. It starts out the disciples asking Jesus, how is it that we are to pray? And so it is that Jesus begins with teaching the Lord's Prayer, which, of course, I hope that we all know off by heart. It's funny that if you pray the Anglican Breviary, which is based on those old sevenfold offices like the Roman Catholic Church, the Lord's Prayer, the Our Father, is said multiple times during each particular office. And so during the course of the day, you end up saying the Lord's Prayer 27 times. That's not a bad thing if you mean it each time. But so Jesus teaches them the perfect prayer, which is the Lord's Prayer. But then as he goes on to continue to teach about prayer, he says this. We're picking up at verse 9. He says, "And I say unto you, ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. For every one that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened." Now, one of the perplexing things about prayer, in light of both the lesson appointed for Holy Communion and the gospel lesson from Luke appointed for morning prayer, is that Jesus says that we are to ask so that things will be given to us. Right? If we seek something, we will find it. If we knock, the door will be open to us. And also in the reference with at the communion service lesson, same thing with John's Gospel. There's this assumption that if I ask for something in prayer, then God has to give it to me. Well, first of all, God is not Santa Claus, right? We don't put things on our list and assume that if we're good boys and girls, God will give it to us. Rather, what prayer is an open conversation with God, a pouring out of our hearts to Him, as well as our love and our gratitude. And in praying in requests, we are asking God with the caveat, always the caveat, thy will be done. Now, it's frustrating, of course, when we are praying for things that we are absolutely sure are good things. It is a good thing to pray that the coronavirus be quickly dispelled with, that we are able to put it away, and whether it's a vaccine or this virus runs its course, it is a good and positive thing for us to pray for that, and to pray for those who are looking for the cure, and to pray for those who are caring for the sick, as well as those who are affected by it. Those are all good things, and we should think that God should absolutely hear those prayers, and He does. Right? Now, there's also the aspect of free will, that decisions made by people affect the answers to how things work out. But there's also a larger plan of salvation. And one of the things that happens as we get involved in the life of prayer, and I hope that you're taking advantage of this time where our schedules have changed to actually do more prayer, or if not more intense prayer, that we are able to go deeper, that we're able to positively use this. One of the things we find as we grow in the spiritual life, and I still discover this day by day because I'm not perfect yet. If you think I am, boy, I got news for you. I'm nowhere near it yet. But I find out as I'm improving by God's grace day by day that my prayer life has changed, and the way that I pray has changed, and what I am praying for has changed. And most important part of my prayer and at the end of my prayer is, thy will be done, just as it says in the Lord's Prayer at the beginning of the lesson for today, right? Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, right? I want to learn to pray so that my will is in accord with his will, so that things that I am asking for come closer and closer to God's divine plan and will for me, because he has one. And so even though there have been times in my life when I've been able to look back and think, I can't believe I prayed for that, and thank God God didn't give it to me, right? Although at the time it seemed like a personal, perfectly reasonable thing for God to answer in my favor as I assumed it. But God had a bigger plan. He had a purpose. And he knew that all answers to prayer are either yes or no, right? We hate that answer, but it's no sometimes. Or not yet. And when it's no, it's because God has a plan otherwise. And our lives through prayer will come closer and closer to that divine will as we do so. What I asked for when I was new to the faith, 25 years, 30 some years ago, 31 years now, when I was newly back to the practice of the faith, what I asked for seems almost ridiculous in many ways. And yet the core of what I was asking for was to grow in faith. And God is honoring that every day. And he will do that for you as well. So brothers and sisters, keep praying, keep asking, even if it seems ridiculous. God will take those prayers, and they are precious to him. And even if we don't get the answer we want, we should know that what we will get will be his divine purpose for us. And the more we pray, the more in that relationship of prayer with him, we will come to figure that out. I hope you have a wonderful Rogation Sunday. God bless you.